Welcome to Who Made This Mess? Raising Children and Reparenting Ourselves. Here we discuss the joys and challenges of parenting while trying to develop our own self-awareness and self-compassion. Raising children can be messy and so hard, but we believe that as we learn to embrace our own messiness and imperfection, we can learn to show up for our kids and raise a gentler generation.
Hi, welcome back. I'm Angie.
I'm Shauna.
And we're so glad to have you with us today. We have actually asked our viewers to reach out to us if you had any questions or topics you would like us to discuss. And thankfully, we actually have had some feedback. And one of our viewers did request information or advice or support about balancing everything that needs done in your home or everything else that needs done while trying to give your children the quality time that they need. And so, it's this real struggle for parents out there, myself included. And it does make me think that it's just so relevant. I see all the time on Facebook or on other social media that there's a quote out there that I kind of chuckle at because it is true. It says, we can't all look good at once. It's either me, the house, or the kids. Right. And that's so true. If I think about my own life, I'm not excelling in all three. It is one of those that I'm doing well in and the other are miserably failing. So just all the other things that need done, it can be a struggle.
Yeah, parenthood is a lot, right? Just life in general, the daily care tasks that we have, the work that we have to do before we become parents is so much, right? It can be overwhelming. Then you add kids into the mix and it just sometimes feels impossible,
right.
Insurmountable.
Mm-hmm.
We think about everything, the cleaning, the cooking, the laundry, animal care, and then work if you have a job outside of the home or if you work from home, right? Trying to balance all of that.
Yeah.
It's a lot,
yeah.
Right? And so, we've been doing some reflecting of what's been working for us and
right.
also how it sometimes feels like it's not working. And and I think that's really normal. I think that's something that every family deals with, this feeling of there's not enough time or sometimes we're not doing a good enough job at all of the things that we want to do.
Yeah.
And I think our brains change when we become parents, right? The research shows that to us. There's this really great study, a 2014 study by Abraham et al., where he talks about, and they look at the father's brain and that being sensitive to childcare experiences. And so they did a bunch of brain scans of mothers, but also fathers, right? Because we know moms go through a lot of biological changes with pregnancy and having babies in that postpartum period. But fathers' brains change too because we have to adjust to life with children, life being responsible for another being.
Yes.
And it's so hard. And so they actually found a lot of changes in the neural networks in your brain. They kind of form new neural networks for emotional processing and mentalizing. So your brain is working really, really hard to provide your children with emotional care, with processing all of the feelings that are going on when you have kids, and also a lot of planning, a lot of strategizing, thinking about how we're going to get this done and that done, and making sure that everybody is okay. And so it's a lot of energy. It's a lot of thought that you have going on.
It's a lot of energy. Yeah, I can't imagine. If I think back, wow, how many times have I either thought to myself or said it out loud to someone, I'm mentally exhausted.
Yes.
And I didn't really have that, or do I not remember having that before children? But yeah, the constant, the lists going on in my head, especially at night when I want to go to sleep, and the lists for the next day start,
Yeah.
And it does take really being intentional about balance, expectations, setting my expectations in the right way, and not striving to be perfect in the areas that I have goals in. I had to let that perfection driven mindset go,
Yes.
and that was difficult for me, because as parents, we want to do the best that we can. That's normal and that's good, but just understanding what's actually possible.
Yeah, we cannot do it all, right? We have to be really reasonable with ourselves. And I mean, I can say that here, but to actually like do that in practice,
Right.
yeah, very hard. I'm not so great at it, and like giving myself grace. And I'm also not good at figuring out how to get it all done. And so, yeah, I think it really does involve kind of being very reasonable, very kind with the expectations that you have for yourself.
Right. Even down to just, I don't think I'm comparing to others out there, but I feel like a long time ago, you didn't have a view into other people's homes about how well they were doing or not doing. Now, with social media and everyone having like their own, here's this tip, here's where I'm doing well, I'm going to share this with you. And so you can internalize that as well. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing a good job. And I don't know. Like, I would have to ask my parents, like, did they have those kind of thoughts? Like, were they comparing to others, or, because there wasn't the social media to show you other homes and how they were doing. But,
I think life and expectations were so different for our parents, but also like our parents' parents, if we really go back and think about it, and how things have changed over time. The demands on parents have changed in so many ways. Life in general has changed in so many ways. And, parents in the 50s, right? Maybe there was a 2-parent family where the man was working and, going to work and providing all of the income for the family, and the mom was a homemaker, and she was focused on the home and the kids, and they had very clear division of labor. There weren't all those distractions. There weren't all those like extracurricular activities, right? Like, it was just like a simpler time. I don't know how accurate that is, because like we weren't alive then, right? But it sounds like it was a simpler time.
It does, yes.
And now it's really complicated, because most families can't survive on one income. And so it's 2 parents working, both trying to juggle jobs with childcare. Fathers are much more involved, which is amazing and so valuable,
Right.
But creates just this imbalance, or a difficulty in balancing work life, home responsibilities, and childcare responsibilities and relationships, right? Like trying to balance all of that. I know there's another really great study out there, a 2018 study talking about time deficits with children. And they're talking about these demands that, paid workers have combined with like their mothering or fathering roles, their parenting roles, and that really becomes a chronic stress. It's a chronic stress that's associated with poor health and well-being for parents, right? They have more distress, anger, sleep problems when they're trying to adjust to this work-life balance and these family factors. So yeah, this topic is so important because it's affecting us.
It really is,
right?
yeah.
Like trying to find that balance, it's affecting our well-being. And so there is no perfect, but I think that there are some ways and some things we're going to talk about today of like, how can you get support around these things? How can you make this a little bit easier, a little bit more balanced?
One thing that really has worked in our home, and I'm so thankful that we started doing this among our family. I was really struggling when the kids were, I'm not sure, but probably like 3 and 4. Jasmine was probably going on 5, but really struggling with getting dinner on the table, quality time, but feeling like I needed to take care of the things of the house. And so a lot of the time what would happen would be I was making sure they were either watching TV or occupied in some other way so that I could start on this task. Well, what would happen was they're very big on quality time, and so their tank of quality time wasn't filled up, and so they were coming to me continually interrupting, and so to make a meal was taking so long. To clean up something was taking so long, washing the dishes or folding a load of laundry, because it was constant interruptions. And so I was figuring in my brain that I needed to make sure that they were occupied some other way for me to do the task. And that just separated us. And so one thing that I started doing was including them in the prepping for the meals. And so what I did was, they were still very young, so they weren't able to help with a lot yet, but I would allow them to help a little bit. I might cut up veggies and have them mix that in a bowl together. Did it really need done? Maybe not, but they were in the kitchen with the vegetables I had cut all in one bowl, and they got to stand there and mix them together before putting them in a sauce or something like that. I had to set my expectations right, as far as, I'm not going to have these gourmet meals. They're not necessarily going to be the healthiest. Unfortunately, they weren't always going to be something that looked beautiful. We would have a spaghetti and meatballs, and I might choose to just use the frozen meatballs, and so the kids would be able to put meatballs. Yeah, I could have just dumped the bag into a tray to put into the oven, but I would let them line up the meatballs and put them all in. They were helping, and they loved that, and they were with me, spending time with me while we got dinner on the table. And then as I would do usually just like one child at a time, and so it would alternate, and the other I would teach them how to set the table. And so one thing that I had to give up was what the wall by our dining room table looked like. Our wall had a picture of how to set the table on it, and not a beautiful piece of regular artwork for our living area. But that helped the child, that it was their job to set the table that day, they could do that. I also had to let go of making, the time would just go so quickly. So we used styrofoam plates and disposable napkins a lot, and that was fine for us. I had to let go of some of the goals I had of making sure I also was a recycling mom, making sure I also was a mom that cut down on waste. And when they were that age, that just needed to not be the high priority. And so it's something that, in time, I will add that back in to start being more mindful of. But at that time, my kids really needed me to be there for them in that way. And it's just really, really helped. They loved cooking. One thing was, because they were helping prepare food, they would try foods. And so it was a win in several areas. They were trying foods that they may not have tried because they helped make it. We had quality time, dinner got put on the table, cleanup was a little bit easier, and so it just checked a lot of boxes and helped our family a lot. So that's one tip, that if you want to try it, give it a try. Let your kids help out. Start off by letting them put frozen garlic bread out on a tray, and that'd be their job. Start with something simple.
I think it's a mindset shift, right? So you're really taking these tasks that you see as like the daily tasks that need to get done, and you're shifting it to a task that you can do together, and it might take longer. You might have to go slower, and sometimes that's really hard, but it is really that bonding and that learning that they're getting from that experience. And so, how can you think about meals that they can help with, right? Like when you're doing your meal planning, you're keeping that in mind. You're thinking about those age appropriate ways that they can help. Is it, they have their little plastic fork that they're cutting the veggies with, right? Like, finding the different age appropriate ways to involve them, and then framing it as this exciting thing that you get to do together. One thing in our household, my husband has these beautiful memories of Saturday morning errands with his dad. And so he really wanted to do that with Etta. And it's great because it's my me time when they go for errands. And he has to get these errands done anyways. And so, like, it's their adventure time, their Saturday adventures. And so it's like, oh, you get to go on an adventure with Daddy today, right? And he takes her and they go get feed for the animals. And maybe they stop by the grocery store or have to go pick up a couple of things. And it's just this exciting time together. They go get coffee usually, like our coffee for the week. And maybe he'll get his coffee and she'll get a little hot chocolate or, you know, they get bagels, right? And so it's like, instead of just being like, oh, I have to get the feed for the animals and I have to go pick up milk at the store and I have to get coffee for the week, it's like, oh, let's go slow. Let's go have, you know, visit these people at the feed store and you can say hi to them, right? And like you can look at the little chicks in the, you know, in the chick pen at the store, right? Like, so it's like giving them these moments, slowing down in those moments to make them meaningful. And that's great because he gets to go have that time with her, that real special bonding time, creating those memories that, you know, remind him of also the special relationship he had with his dad. And then for me, I get a little bit of time for myself, time to get things done uninterrupted, that I can't get done when she is there. Right. So it's, yes, involving kids in the tasks when you can, having them help in the kitchen, having them unload the dishwasher with you or taking them to do errands with you. But then I think it's also being able to have that support from other people of when you need help, right? Like, you know, she's gone and I can take that time to do things for myself.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Lean on the support that you do have. It's so great to take the time. Like, I had to learn that when Maurice would have the kids for a little bit of time, sometimes I felt guilty for like resting a little bit but sometimes like that reset was enough that then when they were back, I was able to be more present. I had mentally rested, so then I could include them and stuff like that. Now, what's helpful is they, you know, whenever we started with the cooking, it was more me pouring into them quality time and getting dinner on the table. Now they are giving back, and it is helpful to have them help me. And so a task doesn't take quite as long. One thing that I did have to learn was if it was a task, whether it be cooking or something else that I needed to, it wasn't something they could necessarily help me with. I had to make sure that I filled their quality time tank just a little bit before going to do that task, and it made a really big difference. They didn't need me as much, and the interruptions were less. And even just finding ways to simplify where you can, I think is important, because there were times where if I needed to go down and check the laundry, like taking the kid with me, well, how long does that take? So, you know, it's nothing wrong with like making sure they were safe, either by using a baby gate, if they were really little, making sure they were in the bassinet or a bouncer, the high chair in front of the TV for 5 minutes while I went downstairs to switch laundry. Like, that's okay. Don't feel guilty about that. Your child is safe because they're strapped into a safety seat. They're watching TV while you go downstairs. They are okay. And even if like you hear them say, "Mom, you know, you're gonna be up in 2 minutes. You'll be up and back up the stairs." And you know, just be kind to yourself and easy on yourself. Take the steps to help simplify. You know, I'm sure you've found things that work for you to help simplify as well.
Yeah, and it's a lot about, I'm hearing you say, like, setting yourself up for success, right? And so you're setting yourself up for success by having those fill your tank moments, like the focusing on the quality time rather than the quantity of time. And so like making those moments really special, having that special play time together, right, for 5 minutes, and then setting them up somewhere so that you can go do something independently that you need to do. Taking that time to really be pouring into them, whether that's play, involving them where you can, doing things that they really like. like you had mentioned about before in the car, right? That's a really important time to fill their cup.
Yeah, my kids are 9 and 10 years old now, and we have piano, football, ballet. We have activities galore, all week, several times. And so we're in the car a lot, heading somewhere to one of those activities. And I really have learned that the car is a great time to connect with your kids. So we're not supposed to be on our phones anyway, but get off the phone call. If you're on a phone call, ask them, hey, is there a new song that you know of that you want to listen to? You can put it on the radio. Something happened today at school. Do you want to talk about the day? Just taking time to engage with each other while you're in that car ride just can mean so much and set the tone for where they're going as well. Paying attention to them, listen. The same thing, like just small moments, making the best out of small moments. I have tried to make sure that my kids and I have a moment before they leave for school, because there was a lot of times where I was seeing a trend where my last words to them was like, you're going to be late. You need to get out the door, go, or did you brush your teeth? Yeah. Okay, bye. You know? And so I wasn't really sending them off with like positive connection. And so I wanted to make sure that I was stopping. Eye contact. I mean, how often do I not make eye contact when I'm talking to them? And so making eye contact, telling them I love them, have a good day. Same thing at night. Connecting with them, not just saying, okay, it's time for bed, see you in the morning, make sure you set your alarm. Actually telling them I love you, I hope you have a good night's rest, giving them a hug, connecting, that takes 30 seconds, maybe even less,
But as it becomes part of your routine and your rituals around saying goodbye or having bedtime, right, it becomes easier because it's a habit.
Exactly.
It's not just like something new that you're trying to do. So those things might be hard when you're first starting out because they take more energy and thought to implement them.
Right.
But eventually it becomes really natural and normal to have those moments of connection built in.
Yes.
Right. And I think so you're like kind of finding those small moments, maybe having those sacred times like your goodbyes or your bedtime or, that little special playtime that you get and you make sure is really you're all in during those moments. But then I think it's also finding those times where you can't be present with them on that level. You can't be present with them emotionally. Maybe you can be present with them physically. Like there might be times where you're working on email on your computer and they're playing on the floor or they're, doing their thing and you just being that physical presence
Right,
is
room,
important. Yeah. But then there are times where you need to have physical space. Maybe it's for safety reasons of what you're doing or, like we were trying to clean out the chicken pens, right? And she can't be right there with all the chicken stuff. So, having to get her into a safe place, right? So like you mentioned the baby gates, right? Is it creating a safe place in your home where she can play independently? Sometimes it is setting her up with my phone. Like we ended up doing that because she really wanted to be able to see us. Kind of setting her up on the porch while we worked outside with the phone and making sure if I was over there with the hose spraying stuff down, I'm facing her so that I can see where she is, right? But she's doing her thing and I'm doing my thing. Having special toys that you only pull out for special occasions. So this was a great tip that I've heard for like breastfeeding mothers, right? When you have a new baby, but you have a toddler at home, is you have like a special basket of toys and books and things they don't get to play with all the time, but are really special to them in those moments when you have to be occupied.
Right.
You can give them that basket of new toys that will entertain them while you're doing what you have to do. So it is a lot of thinking in advance and maybe planning and preparing the space or preparing the activities so that you can give them an appropriate task, appropriate safe place to be.
Right. Yeah, and I know for my kids, my goal is to not have them like despise like keeping a home, or to grow up like thinking, well, these things are all bad. I prayed for a family to take care of, and just remembering like, oh no, I'm not going to be like singing for joy while I'm washing the dishes. I dislike dishes, but just remember that the household that I'm taking care of is a gift and something that I've prayed for. The children that I'm feeding every day, it's daunting, but there's joy in it, and I want them to know that that there's benefits from keeping up with it all. You mentioned even there's safety reasons why sometimes they can't be near you. Well, in both of our households, the line of work, there's confidentiality, whether it be in ministry or in other career paths. There's reasons why, like my kids, they listen to everything. So like they may not be able to be in the room while I'm working on something that has privacy attached to it, or my husband having a phone call, and so just again, like making sure that you're finding what works for your household. These are things that have worked for us. These are things that it really was like mentally setting those expectations, really striving to look at what works for our household. That's something that our viewers, like, we hope that you are intentional about trying to figure out what may work for you, thinking, hey, well, maybe this car ride, it only happens once a week, but maybe this car ride I can try it out,
to try to be more focused on it, making those times quality, and then like also having those moments of self-compassion or self-kindness where maybe you're okay with taking some shortcuts. You mentioned disposable plates, right?
Yeah.
For me, it's no-fold laundry. You hadn't heard of this before,
I had
right?
not heard of that.
Yeah. So
very cool.
I've heard of I think this is from Casey Davis. Casey Davis, if you have ever followed her on TikTok, she's Domestic Blisters, but she has a book called How to Keep House While Drowning, and it's a lot about not even just parents, but people who are maybe neurodiverse or dealing with depression, right? It's like, how do we have self-compassion for ourselves in how we do these daily care tasks for ourselves and for our home, and having our home support us and serve us rather than us constantly serving our homes, right? And so no fold laundry, and with kids' clothes, most of them, they're not really going to get very wrinkled, or it doesn't really matter. And so I don't fold her t-shirts, her pants, her pajamas. I have baskets for her daytime clothes and basket for her nighttime clothes. And they just go in. They don't get folded. Some things get hung, like her dresses maybe get hung up. But it's so much easier because I don't have to take that time folding all of the little tiny clothes that just get like juice spilled on them anyway.
Right. Yeah.
And you get changed 100 times a day, it feels like. And so finding those shortcuts for you, having compassion with yourself, if you don't have the time or energy to make good food, like, the healthiest food, you're still feeding your body. You're still making sure your kids aren't hungry, right? And so that's okay, right? Having that compassion, if it is, using more frozen food when you need to, if it's, I've told clients before, it's okay for you to have cereal for dinner, right? It's okay for you. Like, it's okay if you need that.
Yeah, my goal is not to make a lifestyle out of it. And in time I'm teaching them, like, okay, this is a healthier choice and stuff. Like, we won't always eat this way, but for now, this is what works for us, and I'm grateful.
Yeah. And I think that really does go back to any of these like simplifying tips. It goes back to what we talked about at the beginning. You don't have to be perfect. Exactly. You don't have to do it all. You never will, and that's okay. You are still lovable. You are still worthy. You are still a great parent, even if you're not getting it all right all the time. So set those reasonable expectations. Involve your kids when you can, right? Whether that's giving them a little toy broom to sweep alongside you, or, just having them, baby wearing them, having them close to you when you can, right? Involve your kids. Focus on making those small moments really high quality. So it's not going to be all the time, but those moments you do have, being focused and intentional about making them positive and quality, and then simplifying, right? Choose your battles, and keep it simple.
Yeah. Great topic. Thank you
Yeah.
for our listeners. We actually did appreciate that topic. It was a very good one. If you have any input or comments about it, we'd love to hear from you. Please reach out. We have our Gmail, whomadethismesspod@gmail.com. You can find us also on Instagram at whomadethismesspodcast. I can be found at Robinson Right Now on Instagram.
And I'm at The Nerdy Nurturer.
Thank you so much for listening.
Bye.